Hi, everybody. This is John Billingsley, a.k.a. Phlox of Star Trek Enterprise, and you are listening to the SyFy Sistas podcast, the podcast to end all podcasts.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the SyFy Sistas podcast. I'm your host, Tamia Harper, and today I'm joined by my sisters, Yvette Blackman-Tom.
Hello.
Sabrina Wood.
Whoop whoop.
And Fran T.
What's happening?
But we're not alone, kids. We have a great, fabulous, wonderful guest with us. Somebody that, if I swear to God, if you've watched television since 1990, you know this man. I'm just going to give a little quick rundown of my history of some of my favorite shows where I first heard his lovely voice and saw his beautiful face. Let's start with NYPD Blue, The Practice, The Pretender, The X-Files, Stargate SG-1, Roswell, Cold Case, 24, True Blood, Turn, Washington Spies, come on now, Nip Tuck, Grey's Anatomy, Scrubs, love Scrubs, The Mentalist, The Orville, The Gilmore Girls, Leverage, that was one of my favorite times I've ever seen you on television, Suits, Bones, Lucifer, Station 19, y'all getting the picture now?
Mm-hmm. Don't forget The Closer.
The Closer.
Mm-hmm.
This man has been on literally everything. I'm saving the best for last. He's also done a ton of movies, some with some special Star Trek alumni like Michael Dorn and Armin Shimmerman and Kitty Swank, and a lovely movie that Sabrina and I are both big fans of, Out of Time with Denzel Washington. Ooh. Love that movie. The sci-fi classic, The Man from Earth. It's become a classic. Do you all know who I'm talking about yet? Okay, here's one more. He played Dr. Phlox on Star Trek Enterprise. We're talking about the man, the myth, the legend, John Billingsley is in the house with us tonight.
Wow. Wow. I'd like you to travel around in my life just introducing me to people.
I will do that, baby. I can be
like at the grocery store, the hardware store, just on the street, you know? That's great.
The hype man.
The hype man.
You left out all the crappy things I've done with that. That's a much longer list. We can talk about that.
It's not that type of show.
Okay.
Hey, you know how I love the Internet Movie Database, and so of course, researching the show, I pulled you up on that thing, John, and it was like 170 credits. Like, oh my God!
I'm an old man.
That was just as an actor. That was just as an actor.
You're a working man, is what
That's
you
right,
are.
A working man. That's right.
But folks, we have him here on the show because his most important role, to me, I think the most important role is being on the board of the Hollywood Food Coalition and all the amazing work that you do for the Hollywood Food Coalition. So that's what we want to talk about today. I mean, obviously we want to talk about a lot of stuff. And yes, I do want Enterprise
I'm an open book,
but I'm going to save it because the focus here is the Hollywood Food Coalition. So can you tell us how you got involved and, a little bit of your journey and what Hollywood Food Coalition is about?
Absolutely. The Hollywood Food Coalition, first I'll start with the organization and then I'll talk about how I got involved with it. It's been around for a little under 40 years now. It started as street corner-centric service for people experiencing homelessness. It evolved into a more elaborated soup kitchen, wonderful multi-course meals, and a variety of other ancillary services, hats and shoes and socks and gloves and tents and sleeping bags and bus passes and laundry vouchers and access to other organizations that provided great services. I went in one day because I've always volunteered and I'd heard about this cool organization. My wife had suggested I stop by, making a fruit salad, washing the dishes, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the great vibe of the place, how warm and friendly everybody was, the amazing food, and the terrific service they were providing to people in need. I've been on a lot of boards and I've started theater companies and have some managerial experience. They were running the whole thing on about $8. And I kind of thought, I might have some thoughts if you'd be interested. And flash forward 5 years, I was president of the board, which is just goes to show you, one, be careful what you wish for, and two, anybody can become a board president in America. I one of the things that I'm very proud of is that I think my wife and I both recognize that one of the things that we might want to do to expand the capacity of the organization was to recognize that food and all the different ways in which food can be an instrument to help people climb a ladder. You got to have a great meal every day. You got to have 3 great meals every day if you're going to get anything else accomplished. Anybody who doesn't, believe that, try going hungry for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
We recognize that a lot of great programs all over the city were doing wonderful things, but maybe didn't have robust food programs. So we started sharing food we rescued. We now rescue almost 3 million pounds of food a year. We share it with about 150 other not-for-profits to help augment and buttress their meal programs. And we're trying to sit down with other groups to kind of figure out, hey, what can we do collectively to improve our capacity to help underserved and underprivileged populations that we cannot do alone? As for instance, there's simply not enough refrigeration. You collect food all over the place. You got to stash it someplace unless you can put it immediately on somebody's table. There's not enough transportation. There's not enough storage space. We need a better mechanism by which volunteers can be called to the table to come and pick up food. A lot of that stuff can only work if other groups come to the table together. So a lot of what attracted me to the organization was its name, the Hollywood Food Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very passionate coalition builder and very passionate about what the nature of what we can only do as an agglomeration of groups. So that's kind of the long and the short of it. I was the board president. I'm now the co-chair of the development committee. And when you're ready, I'll start talking about what we're doing coming up that might be of interest to Star Trek fans. But I want to answer a question you haven't asked me. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I want to get into just want to know how, like you broken it down into like 4 different things, like the dinner, the exchange, the wellness, and the building. I kind of want to know what that all means because you generalized it, but it's so much more. So I would, if you can expand on that a little bit.
This is the thing for me is that, there are 3 values that we had when we started years ago. 1 is reliability, 2 is trust, 3 is compassion. Mm-hmm. If you're hungry, the knowledge that every night, 7 nights a week, we haven't missed a night in 40 some years, that every night you're going to have a hot, really good meal and you have choice. You can choose between vegetarian, vegan, or carnivorian, whatever options.
That's great.
If you have a place to go that feels that you can count on, out of the relationship that comes from that kind of trust, compassion, and reliability, comes the capacity to say, can we also introduce you to these guys who run a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program? Or to these guys who might be interested in helping you, find a job? Or to these guys who might be able to kind of point you towards a shelter bed? Food in that respect is sort of an instrumentality. We don't do everything. No one can do everything. Mm-hmm. We believe is that food is sort of like in Spider-Man, that's the webbing.
Yeah.
So when we expanded to help share food with other communities, the gag was, let us help you do what you already do really well by providing better food so that food gives you the capacity to provide these other services with more dexterity, more intensity, more successfulness. It's the same premise that we've always had. Use food, not use it in a coarse way, but, provide food so as to kind of go Bali high, help people get other stuff done too in their lives. That's sort of the overarching premise. And the same thing, you touched on the 4 pillars, the community dinner, and it's community. Ultimately, we want to be able to serve a sit-down dinner with a menu so that when people come in, not only would they have a choice, but they will be valued as people instead of treated as, as unfortunately the way we view people who have suffered as commodities that we have to take care of them, but people are people, and they have every right to have the dignity and compassion that we would want for ourselves. From that level, though, we think of care comes the capacity to help people climb a ladder that otherwise they might not be able to climb.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The wellness program, right now we collaborate with UCLA Medical. We have in the past vision and dental vans, so there's some immediate service that can be provided. When we have our own home, because right now we share a home, we're a secular organization, no religious test whatsoever. We're on the campus with the Salvation Army because that's where we were able to find kitchen space and get a place to sit down. They let us do our shit, no meddling. We ultimately need to have our own campus.
Yeah.
When we have our own campus, and we're in the process of beginning to build, to search, to find, we believe we've gotten some significant funding to make this possible and community support. We want to have it big enough so that we can bring those partner organizations to our campus so that it will be a one-stop shop for people in need.
Wow.
But the meal program is a thing that pulls you in, And that's the thing. I mean, that's the reality, is that people come for a great meal. They're probably not going to come necessarily because they want to try and get their driver's license replaced, or they want to, get some legal documents taken care of, or they want to find out about a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. They come for a great meal.
Mm-hmm.
We want to then have the ability to say, while you're here, come over here.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome, John.
So,
Yeah.
that's the shtick. We're partnering with a wonderful organization that, if people are interested, called Food for Soul, which is based in Italy. It's a very famous Italian chef who has what he calls the refectory table, where the monks gather. Yeah. It's basically a communal dining conceit. And he created a refectorio program that's very similar to what I'm describing in a small town in Italy, and he's fanned that program out around the world. So he partners with organizations like ours all over the world. He's partnered with a group in New York, in San Francisco. We essentially are becoming their LA-based partner.
Okay.
So their expertise, their brand, their understanding of how to build this, I think is going to help us take this next step.
Nice.
Yeah. And simultaneously, we'll be looking to elaborate and build the exchange program. We built a $100,000 walk-in refrigerator freezer this last year. We now need a larger warehouse because we're collecting almost 3 million pounds of food a year.
Wow.
And forgive me, I can go on and on about this. But the other word that's really important to me is concierge. Concierge level service. If we partner with a not-for-profit, and this is something we have to keep building into and elaborating, we need to say to somebody, let's say it's a shelter for battered women. We need to say, tell us how you're dealing with food. Do you have a kitchen? Do you have cooks? Do you have refrigeration? Do you know how to cook? Would you be able to use somebody who might come in and help you learn how to cook? Could we bring somebody in to do that? Tell us what kind of foods you need. Does it have to be prepared food? Does it have to be prepackaged food? Can you use fresh produce? Can you use... So it's not... You can't... Because what happens with food banks, food banks it's like, here, take it.
Right.
And it's the range of food is limited, and the nature of the delivery system to individual organizations can be very narrow. We want to try and say, in the partnership, let's work together to get you exactly what you need to make the experience exactly what works for you, so that you're providing the best food for your folks.
Wow. That is, as a person who has been, like I think I told you before, I've been without food in my lifetime. So I know what it feels like to not have food and not feel, and to feel like less than, because you have to ask people, for a basic right. So when you talk about how these people are treated, it hits me, because I know that I had to get online to get food, and I felt like, less than, I was hungry. So you have to do what you have to do.
In America, I mean, I'm sure know this, that, it depends upon how you look at the statistics. Either 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 American children are food insecure, which doesn't mean they're necessarily going hungry, but it means they don't necessarily know what they're going to eat, when they're going to eat, will it be enough, will it be healthy?
Yeah.
I mean, to wake up in the morning with that set of questions, we don't wake up with those questions.
Yeah.
If you don't wake up, I mean, understand, you kind of almost, because I never was food insecure, but I was a poor actor for many years. There were definitely periods when it was like, what stores can I go to get free samples? Who's going to buy me a beer tonight? Where could I go to? If that's in your brain, for me, that never left me. The knowledge that, a lot of people have that only to the nth degree. And you can't get a lot done.
Nope.
In your life when, you're worrying about basic needs. Yeah.
And let's not forget the areas, because we have them here, food deserts,
Exactly.
where
Right.
they don't have, they don't have a grocery store that they can go to and buy food for like we normally do. That's awful too. We have two areas here, and both of them are in Norfolk that are food deserts.
Yep.
And it's hard. It's hard. People don't have cars. They got to walk to the store. There's no store to walk to get the food. So that plays a lot into it also.
Absolutely. And that's, long term, long range. For me, the goal 5 or 6 years ago was I want this organization to survive. And secondarily, I wanted to expand its capacity so that people will become interested in it, give it money so it can build its staff, so it can continue to grow. I do believe that the nature of the way, and I think this is just generally true of not-for-profits, the nature of the way not-for-profits grow and have to think about their future is they have to think about what do we bring to the table that is innovative, interesting, that isn't being done elsewhere, that maybe we could, introduce to other communities. I mean, you look at the history of progressivism in America, you look at the New Deal, it emerged largely because New York was, as other cities were too, but was a hotbed of innovation.
Yep.
And this kind of somewhat dark time we're living in, I think it's really important for me as somebody who's spent his entire life in cities as an actor to kind of turn around and say, I want to be involved in the laboratory that is the city to help grow ideas and conceits about how to help people in need so that other communities might learn from them too. Just as I want to learn from what other communities are doing. Like I want to, talk about helping stealing. It's like, that's a great idea. Let me have that.
Yep. For the greater good. For the greater good. Oh my goodness. Good
Well,
stuff.
for the greater good was Trek Talks last year.
Oof.
We raised some serious money, did we not?
We made $80,000 last year for Hollywood Food Coalition. But the other thing, because there are two other things that I kind of want to talk about that mean the world to me.
Absolutely.
One, track itself, the nature of what track signifies and the nature of what track means. I don't believe that there's such a thing as a perfect world. You can't. But there's a nature of what it means to strive to be better, what it means to attempt to transcend your limitations. That's what track stands for. And I love the idea of kind of trying to create something that we can do every year that gets a lot of the track community together to get behind the concept of what we call Trektivism, which is, hey, it doesn't happen without the work that we all put in our communities to make the world a better place. That should be what animates Trek. So we had a wonderful 6 hour, I think last year it was, this year it's 8 hour, Jerry Lewis-esque telethon with all sorts of wonderful Trek celebrities, behind the scenes folks, producers, writers, directors. And, I was kind of the MC. You guys were amazing. Thank you so much. You kicked the show off with such a bang.
It was fun.
I would love to think that this becomes an institution and that we can partner eventually with Paramount and some other funders, not just to turn folks on to what we do here in Los Angeles. We're just one not-for-profit, but to turn people on to the idea of, what can I do in my hometown? What does it mean to turn around and give back? That's what I think Star Trek should you guys do it. Yeah. What Star Trek should be about. Like, turn your appreciation for what the show's about back into your own actions.
Right. Right.
I think that is a great idea. And I know for one, when we did that, we were just asked to help out with the telethon and we were glad to do it. But after we did it, John, we felt so good. Yeah. We were like, okay, this is like one of the best things we've ever done. We were so happy. And I watched the entire 6 hours. I did not leave. We were there for every panel. They were all so great. We had so much fun. And just watching the money come in. And I was amazed at how much that, I didn't really know of the organization, really. You asked and we came. But after we were watching all the tapes and what you're talking about tonight, I was absolutely amazed at how much work you all did, especially through the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the interesting thing was when the pandemic hit, to me, it was like, okay, this is where you've got to, life is weird, and not-for-profit world is weird. Sometimes opportunities rise, and you got to be willing to drive your car through it. 2020 hit, and a lot of the community was like, gulp. A lot of food sources have disappeared, and suddenly people were cognizant of the fact, oh, hunger. That's actually a big deal, and it was very apparent to me, I think to a number of other people, that a lot of money was going to have to come into the community. So at that time, it was like, guys, I think we need to open an exchange. I think we need to take all this food we're rescuing. I think we need to collect it there. I think we need to find more food sources, and I think we need to drive a fucking hole through. This is our window to. Now, of course, you create a bajillion administrative, logistical, et cetera, problems. You're taking on a whole new functionality. I think everybody hates me for having done this, but it is an amazing, to me, extension of our brand, for lack of a better word. And it, to me, and I don't know that everybody in our orbit fully has the elevator pitch yet, but to me, it's absolutely rooted in what we were always doing in terms of values, mission, and a vision for our city. So perversely, COVID, saved us.
It did to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell us what's on tap for this year?
Well, let's see. Some people who were just beginning, because if you put the asks out too early, people kind of go, call me later. Mm-hmm. So we're just beginning the asks right now. Let me see. Let me find my little list.
Are we getting an exclusive?
We're having a meeting. You're going to get a little bit of an exclusive here. So far,
we got the scoop.
Brent Spiner,
Brent Spiner.
The Na Visitor, Gates McFadden, Rod Roddenberry, John Delancey, Brannon Braga. Those are people on mine.
That's your list.
There are 10 of us on the committee, and we've divvied up a roster of about 40 folks. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow we're going to meet. We're going to find out if some other folks have materialized. We'd love to get, if you're listening, Patrick Stewart!
Patrick Stewart!
If you're listening,
Sir Patrick Stewart.
And we know you are.
And you know you are.
Yes, we just found out that Whoopi will not be able to join us, which is unfortunate. But we tried. We're going to keep trying.
Yeah.
And I'll say this. Last year, one of the things that kind of was stunning to me is because this kind of came out because I was doing a show with the Trek Geeks, Bill and Dan, who I know you know. Mm-hmm. And while we were gabbing,
those guys,
those guys, they were talking about a similar thing they did with Jonathan Frakes to raise money for Feeding America. They made $5,000 just interviewing Jonathan Frakes, and I said, well, we could probably get other folks and raise money for the Hollywood Food Coalition. Want to try? And I just wrote a letter to everybody I knew, and they, kind of joined in. And it was like everybody said yes. It was like, oh, everybody said yes. And David Livingston, has been a huge contributor. The guy directed more episodes of Star Trek than anybody in history. He's on the board. I recruited him for the board, and he's been, a godsend. So everybody said yes. It was like, oh my gosh, we got more Star Trek people than we can accommodate. What are we going to do? We're going to have 3-minute interviews. So this year we're kind of trying to do a little bit differently and say, okay, let's do this in tranches. Let's ask, this cluster, see what we got. And then if we need more, let's ask this cluster. Mm-hmm. So we're probably not going to have the full roster in place until, if I was a betting man, maybe somewhere around the 10th of December.
Yeah.
But that's still a month in advance. And, as soon as we get the whole thing, believe me, it'll be, we're starting to kind of like tootly-toot-toot already. Mm-hmm. The tootly-toot-tooting will get more intense as
Hashtag tootly-toot-toot.
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad. This is
really cool too. I'll say this is something I'm really proud of because I'm the chair of the development committee. I was the board president. We did this and it kind of inspired other board members a little bit to say, hey, this is a very specific community. These are not the folks who donate to the Hollywood Food Coalition. These are Star Trek fans. We don't know anything about us. Another guy on our board said, I could throw a concert because I know a lot of people in the music industry, and a whole bunch of people would come to that who don't know anything about the Hollywood Food Coalition. We just did that last night and made $100,000.
Wow.
Get out of here. Oh, my God.
And then another guy stepped forward. Did you ever see those silly Liberty commercials with the guy with the emu?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
That guy is a friend of ours, and he put together a night of improvisational comedy with Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock. And
Badgie?
The kind of the nerdy guy who was like...
He plays Badgie on Lower Decks.
Yep, on Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yeah, him, Flo from the...
Oh, how awesome.
So they did this great improv night, and we made $80,000 from that.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I'm giving a challenge here. You hear this challenge coming
This is cool, because if you're in development, the hardest thing is like, I've been on boards where you throw an event and it kills you. You throw a party, it costs a fortune. Yeah. You're hitting your donors for the party, and then you can't hit them again at the end of the year because they've already donated to the party. Mm-hmm. It's for an organization to figure out, which is I think what we're trying to do, ways to tap a lot of different constituencies on an ongoing basis, because it's a great show without costing the organization a lot of money and a lot of manpower. Yep. I feel very, as an administrator, very proud that we're going to generate $300,000 this year.
That's
and it
awesome.
didn't cost us practically a goddamn thing.
That's wonderful.
That's the way you do it. That's awesome.
So so now I'm like wrestling.
Yep. Exactly.
That's the one.
I'll be defrocked as eventually as the head of the development committee, because people will know.
That's enough of that.
It's enough of that. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, John!
So
thank you.
We haven't given people specific details about which day they should be marking their calendar.
January 14, 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock Pacific time. Go to trektalks.net. Mm-hmm. There are different platforms. YouTube's one of the platforms. We'll have 3 or so different platforms you can listen on. Live streamed. And if you want, go to trektalks.net and you can, or just go to YouTube. You can watch last year's event.
That's right.
It's still evergreen.
It hasn't gone anywhere.
It's there. It's there. Yeah. In all its glory.
Yep, and you can give money anytime.
Give money anytime.
Yes, please do.
HoFoCo.org is another place you could check us out, the Hollywood Food Coalition, at HoFoCo.org. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. That's the one. HoFoCo.org.
Yes. And remember, it's Trek Talks with an S.
.net.
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 Yeah, that kind of links up to the Trek Geeks.
Yes, it does.
Bill and Dan. It's a really wonderful. I mean, you guys are part of it now. It's a wonderful. It's Bill and Dan, the wonderful Jay Stobie, John Champion from Roddenberry Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm elated that Bonnie Gordon, the voice of the computer,
yes,
a fabulous entertainer, has joined us. Amy Boitano, mega fan, mega donor, who's hosted a marvelous party for us in Las Vegas.
Cocktails.
That was fun.
That's Amy and Simon. Earl Green, who is really the unsung hero, who makes the whole thing run on the day. He's got like an amazing compound in Arkansas. He was a television producer, and he never not a drop of sweat, just like boom, 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 boom,
sure
boom.
Does.
The show went seamlessly last year, like a miracle.
Yeah. He's got all kinds of new gadgets this time. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I don't have anything to bring to the table other than fervor. That's the only thing I have to offer. But you know what? You got to have a guy with fervor.
You got to,
and and those good looks. It helps.
Yes, thank you.
Look at him. He's all blushing.
Yes, he's blushing. Oh my god.
Okay. Do we have time to get in one enterprise question?
You can ask us. I'm not going anywhere. It's your show. I'll stay all night. God knows. Bonnie said when it's right. I said I don't know. Maybe 12. I don't know. I don't know how these ladies run their show.
You don't know how to.
I have had podcasts that lasted for 3 hours. There was one guy in Ireland It was a little lisping guy who had obviously never seen the show, and I couldn't understand a word he said. He was out in 5 minutes. I was like, so, you never... So I wrote a story for you. Which was the show you're on there? It's like, Enterprise with Scott Bakula. I don't want to conduct with us all that one. What did you play then? What did you play? Dr.
Wow.
Phlox. Oh, you're a doctor then? What kind of doctor were you? Like, just a regular space doctor, alien-headed doctor? Oh, it's very interesting. Sorry. I'm like, oh, God, what are you? Oh, thanks so much for being on. Like, pleasure.
Wow.
Thank you, sir.
That was an odd one.
Wow.
I give good podcasts. I have been on so many, in part because it's like, I talk about the Food Coalition, and in part because I'm an actor and I'm a slut. I'd go to the opening of an envelope. It's like, I'll be on your podcast. Sure, I will.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Well, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. And, okay, so I'm doing a rewatch of Enterprise because it was not my favorite when it came out.
Are you fast forwarding the shit I'm not in?
Yeah, basically. How did you know?
What I did.
Y'all should watch it together.
Sabrina is the Enterprise nut of the sisters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sabrina, just go to town. Just go ahead. You've been so
Sabrina.
contained. I'm so proud of you.
John, you don't know what I go through with these three.
I get this.
So are we going to announce officially that Tamia, what you're going to do about the rewatch of Enterprise? Are we announcing it now? Am I going to put you on the spot?
Okay, fine. That means it might actually really happen then.
Yeah.
I'm doing a reluctant rewatch.
No shade.
It's what it is. It's a okay, so look, I really didn't like Enterprise when it first came out. And it wasn't anything that you guys were doing or weren't doing. It was because my mindset was like, I don't want to go backwards. Like, I'm already up in Deep Space Nine. Why do I want to go backwards? I was just, at the time, did not want to watch it. I was closed off and closed minded. Yeah. And that song, that damn song, killed me. I mean, like, I'm starting my night with TOS, and then I move into TNG, and then I move to Deep Space Nine, and then there's Voyager, and there are these grand, wonderful themes, and then I got an 80s rock ballad, and I swear to God, I wanted to kick somebody's dog every time I heard it. But now...
I'll tell you a funny story. It's a little bit funny, and it's a little bit tragic. After 9/11, like a few days after 9/11, I was, driving up to the studio, and there were a bunch of pickets outside. I thought, oh, shit, what have we done? And how does it relate to 9/11? And how is Paramount implicated? And I was sure it had to have something to do with 9/11. So I was like, oh. And I get closer, and it's like 6 or 7 Star Trek fans going, "We hate the song! We hate the song!" I was like, I'm not crazy about the song, but it's like, I think in the broader context of the world, this is not the thing you want to be picketing about right now, but all right.
Welcome to Star Trek fandom. Yep.
I just want to say that I love the show from the song, and I am the one that loved. Let's put it this way: the song actually.
I love the credits.
Something else, whatever everybody has to say about the song, I don't care. But the song got me through a really bad patch personally, and when I heard that song, and I love the lyrics. And I tell you right now, it is. They show TOS and then TNG and then and I can lose any of the rest of them. But at midnight, I turn on some Enterprise. Let me tell you, because I want to hear my song. As
somebody who does a lot of dog and pony shows at conventions, I can tell you that being able to kind of use the song to my advantage as a bit of shtick has made me fun. I can't remember that Dom and I have changed the words a bajillion times. It's been a long time stealing that captain's chair. It's been a long time getting it from here to there. And into the truck and home, and now it's in my living room or whatever,
Hey, man,
at midnight, we're all going to be singing that.
Yeah. So that I really liked that song.
Well, I have to say though that when I started, so I'm going to do this rewatch of Enterprise because it's
because I keep talking about it
because you're being bully ragged into it. I understand.
Yeah, I am.
You're whipped, is what you're saying. Is that
look who I'm surrounded by.
Wow.
Of course I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so and I heard the song the other day, and I was telling the sisters, it was actually comforting. Like it was almost as comforting to hear, almost not quite, almost as comforting to hear when I hear the Deep Space Nine.
Oh wow!
It almost felt like that because it had been so long since I'd heard it come on the air, and I was like, okay. And then I knew that I might be ready.
It has been weird in the sense that, I mean, that was a show after it went off. I thought, well, no one's going to ever watch. That show is gone. It was like, UPN is gone. This show is gone.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Have you heard of Star Trek?
Well, but you have to go back in time. This was before streaming.
True.
And Brandon and Rick had been escorted off the lot at gunpoint. And the movies were not, I used to make the joke. It's like, I was on the show that killed the franchise. I was on the show that killed the franchise.
I remember you saying that, yes.
So, the idea that now it's back on a streaming service and that people are rediscovering it. And I have, I have never, I'm not shy about anything. There are things I liked about it. There are things I didn't like about it. There are episodes that I thought were good. There are episodes it was like, oh my God, I hate that episode. Mm-hmm. I always like me, but that's something else.
No, but you know what? Dr. Phlox was definitely one of the best characters ever because you had a lot of things to do as the Doctor. And, all the Doctors are great in Star Trek. I love every single franchise's Doctor, but you were like in the engine room. You were dealing with mutants.
That was not my perception of it. But hence my song, which you probably have all heard, but I used to sing this to irritate Dominic because I was like number 7 on the call sheet. I was never on the bridge. They didn't call me up like McCoy.
Right.
So I had tons of time off. So I wrote a little song. Day off, 6 days off, and the checks still come. Character actor in the sun. 6 days off, and the checks still come. I used to sing that to irritate Dominic, especially if he was in the spacesuit.
Yeah. Oh my God! You had one of the best, sick bays though. Your sick bay was cool.
I wish they'd gone a little farther. This was my fundamental, to be honest with you, not objection, but this was sort of my disappointment with the show. Was when we first premiered, I was like, I leached people,
Yes,
I wanted to stay like completely in that ballpark. I just wanted to like leech people and do like weird shit and like I'm gonna rub you with goo and it's like, and I wish they kind of stuck with more of that kind of concept. It's like we're scared of the transporter and the weapons malfunction and we bicker and it's like, people are scared. To me, the whole point of going back in time was, and this is generally my thought about Star Trek, it's like, it interests me, some of the shows that we could tell, some of the stories we could tell that do begin to question, how did we get from where we are now when we can't even fucking talk to each other?
Right.
To a place where we can work together. Right. I think those stories are worth telling in the Star Trek universe.
I love that part of it. I love the whole story of how they started the transporter. That was one of my favorite episodes.
Well, this is an illustration to me of where I kind of wish they got a little farther with that premise of it being like the first time and what's going to happen. And there was an early episode, and I used to kind of steal a peek at the first drafts of the scripts, which we were not allowed to look at. The actors, and I understood this, the producers did not want actors calling them up saying, hey, I'm not even in this episode. Yeah. They didn't want any of that shit. But I used to kind of peek at the first draft in the hair trailer, because some episodes I was off, and if I was off back then when I was younger and more ambitious, I'd try and get work on other shows. So I read the first draft, and this was an early episode. Somebody beams down to the planet, red shirt. They're beamed back up, and their ass is where their head should be. It's like, oh my God, which I thought was great.
That's awesome.
But then when I get the final, shooting script, it's like he's beamed back up, and he's got a twig sticking out of his ear. Oh dear! And Dr. Phlox will just clip that off. It's like,
Aww.
And you can see the network hands on that. You can't have a man's ass where his head is. Well, that's not Star Trek. Yeah. That's where I kind of felt like I wish they'd kind of, stuck to their guns a little bit. But so one man's taste.
Yeah. I would have liked to seen that.
Me too.
I know. I was always pitching ideas to them that were clearly far too outre for them. It was I don't think so, John. How about they pick up a ship of denobulans? Everybody looks like John Billingsley, and they're all horrible slobs, and all they want to do is procreate and eat, and they leave their dirty clothes all over the floor, and they don't know how to use the toilet facilities, and it's like, I hate denobulans. It's like they just looked at me blankly. Why would we ever do that?
That's one of the things I loved about Dr. Phlox, though. He was a randy fellow.
He was randy, I know. And I was the first gay. I was the first gay character. People don't know this.
That's true, because Dr. Phlox didn't care, right?
He had 3 wives, and each of those wives had 3 husbands. And in the episode A Night in Sickbay, I was clearly trying to indicate with my eyebrows that we got it on, I got it on with the husbands, and I got it on with the wives.
There you go.
It wasn't on the lines, but I was trying to, do the eyebrows.
You're trying to nudge, wink, wink it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that translates. I've talked to people who said, that's what I thought. It's
Me too. Daddy, everybody.
Yeah.
I think it clearly translates. So I'm giving it a fresh watch, and I'm loving it these days. And
you are. How far into it are you?
Yeah, like 6 episodes.
Okay, all right. All right. Well, the second season has its longueurs, its dips. Some episodes are good. I'd skip right over the episode where Padma Lakshmi and Connor go diving around in mud puddles. That was like, that was a stinker. Padma Lakshmi is a very good cook.
I believe that.
And she is not. She is not a particularly fine actor.
Well, she's pretty.
This is the second podcast I've on where I made fun of Padma Lakshmi. I can do that because I
have a thing now.
I've always wanted to have one of Padma Lakshmi's meals because they look scrumptious and
I know, right?
Insulting her thespian ability.
Hold on.
Was that the princess?
Exactly, the princess. The stuck-up, snooty princess who, and poor Connor was like, I don't think
my God. That was a long episode.
That was the one that reminded me of the TNG episode.
Yeah.
Right?
Our ratings were not good. When that one aired, it was like we were down. I knew the names of everybody who watched after that. There were only 7 people.
Everybody.
Listen,
the 2 guys around the corner.
All right, well, let's skip on. This is for you, Tamia. Just skip over that one. Just skip over.
Okay, thank you. I have your permission, and I'm probably going to do it.
You even have my permission.
Right.
Oh, damn.
Me too.
Probably the
now
only one that I can say
that episode. I have to go and look at that episode.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Yeah.
I have to.
It wouldn't be worth it.
They were showing Enterprise on Paramount Live. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is, real good, because, Anthony Montgomery was prominent, in the first season. I'm like, this is real good. I really like it. And I didn't mind the theme song. I didn't mind it. So that says a lot when you don't mind that theme song.
Yes, we did do that. Mm-hmm.
I never really entirely understood the people the theme song objection, because just fast forward through the theme song. You don't have to listen to the theme song, but
we couldn't fast forward then.
We can't fast forward then. Now we can skip.
Yeah, but I just let it play, because I was doing stuff and I was still, I was like, I'm not, so I just kind of listened.
TiVo back then.
I didn't have TiVo back then.
I didn't either.
We were watching this on that network.
UPN.
Okay.
Watch it on UPN.
Yeah, you couldn't fast forward.
As soon as that came on the marketplace, it's like, I'm getting TiVo. It's like, you can skip all the commercials. I'm buying TiVo.
I didn't have no TiVo money.
I thought that was the best thing than sliced bread, TiVo.
TiVo. Forgot there was a TiVo.
Yeah. You got TiVo.
So, John, I want to tell you, and this is sincere, you were my favorite character on that show. I loved the way you acted, And it seemed like everything, you just brighten up the whole episode, I think, because I think your personality came through with Dr. Phlox. That's what I thought.
I think it's also always, the Vulcans obviously and the Klingons are kind of, let's face it, they're just downers. Generally speaking, though, I think the alien species have the capacity to kind of, do a couple of things. One is their whole point is they're looking at human foibles from a very different perspective. Right. And that gives you the capacity, regardless of the actor, to inject humor and surprise into a show. So to a certain extent, I was the beneficiary of being the character who got to look at people and say, I don't understand why they're not just having sex out in the open. Why do they not do you can't lose. If you're the actor, you get to talk about that shit. You just can't lose.
But I also thought that you all did the best mirror episode. I didn't
like the mirror episodes. I didn't like the mirror episodes. Well, the reason I didn't like it because I missed the payoff. I just kind of felt like, for a two-parter, and I think they would have returned to that universe if we had survived. Yeah. But I just kind of felt in the end, it was like, I'm not quite sure what the point of it was, Not that every episode
But Hoshi was the queen. That was the point.
Yeah, the point was Hoshi was the emperor.
I don't know if that was the point. That was the end. I don't know if it was the point.
That was the point for us.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
They would have made it through.
And you were deliciously evil.
Well, I liked that part because to me it was like, well, Dr. Phlox is joyful in both universes. Yeah. It's like he's a joyful vivisectionist in this universe. So, really but he's still joyful. All the other characters were kind of bummed out. It was like, Dr. Phlox was still having a good time.
Yes, he was. Killing people.
I like to think that all the Dr. Phloxes and all the various metaverses are all having a good time.
I'm sure. Every one of them.
Yeah. Because for me, in all candor, I've been an actor for many, many years, and frequently on television, I play serial killers and child molesters and, lunatics and nut jobs. And to actually play a guy who's so much closer to my actual personality. On one level, Dr. Phlox was kind of the highlight of my career because it was like, oh, I'm more like him than all these other.
That's what I thought.
Well, thank goodness.
It's hard to kind of figure
right?
out. It's hard to figure out how to play a child molester. I don't even like children, much less do I want to molest them. So it's like, I don't enter into that headspace.
Okay, so that's our show, kids.
Right.
I work blue, by the way. Did I say?
No.
No, really?
No.
That's it.
We saw you on the cruise.
Oh, there you go.
Are you coming back? Are you coming back on the cruise?
Well, they invited
on the cruise. What happened on the cruise stays on the cruise.
They invited me, and I got a contract and everything, but I haven't heard a peep. So I asked Gary, guy who reps me for some things. It's like, could you find out whether or not have they changed their mind? Because usually it's like, they want you to do this bit of social media and that bit of that, and they give you this money now. And so to not have heard anything after signing the contract last February is kind of makes me feel like, did we lose something in translation? I hope I'm coming back because I had a blast.
Well, you better make sure it happens because, at least this SyFy sister wants to be able to meet you, and I'm going this time. So come on now.
I'm also hoping the missus will come, although she won't.
That'd be so cool.
That would be cool.
That
would be real cool.
She won't let me let my hair down quite as much as she used to. I don't know. He's always tisking from the back. Gee, I'll tell you. People have heard all these stories a bajillion times, but I can't make up lies, so I have to tell the same old stories again and again. She went to an early convention. Somewhat, she does not believe that this actually is the way it happened, but she was not really keen on going. So she stood in the back, one of my little dog and pony show, and she said, well, do not call on me, and I don't want to be introduced. So I was like, fine, won't say a word. So, dog and pony. And I usually tell a story about how Jolene was the gassiest person on Enterprise and possibly the gassiest person in the history of Star Trek.
Oh, my God.
Used to walk around eating cheese. It was like, Jolene, put that cheese down. And for the very back of the auditorium, I hear my wife saying, "Pot calling the kettle black." It's like, hello, I'd like you to meet the missus. And from that point on, she was on stage with me at every damned convention I ever appeared at. We had a doubles act. We did a little vaudeville. We had a blast together.
I love that.
And sadly, she has not been on the circuit for a while, so I think she's forgotten what it's like to, let her hair down. So I want her to come.
I want her to come too. Well, I hope she comes.
I hope she
comes.
I hope I come.
Well, if you do come, we gotta have some cocktails, John.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, that's the other thing, is that if you're a guest, they give you the drink ticket. Drink ticket. It's quite the prized commodity on that cruise, I found out.
I'm sure it is.
It is indeed.
That's okay. Fran and I are going to have the fancy drinks that everybody gets jealous of without the alcohol in them.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful.
I have the fancy.
Sabrina was telling me about that.
I have the fancy drinks with the alcohol. When you've got the drink ticket, it's like, Brandy Alexander, please. Shot. Come on.
They're beautiful and they taste good.
Ooh,
the ones with, without the alcohol.
Oh,
they taste good.
I'll have to take your word for that. I don't know.
I switched over just because her drink was so much prettier than mine. I had to get one.
Really?
It was delicious.
I did.
I want to make sure that we get out all the Enterprise stuff that you need to get out before we wrap this up, baby.
I do really, John. I just love that show, and I think one of the things I really loved about it was that your doctor just seemed to butt up against a lot of ethical dilemmas. I think you really had the most of any of the doctors. I don't know. It was, you had that whole one with the mink where you were like.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I made the right ethical decision with that one, to be honest.
Yeah, that was the whole point. I mean, I was sort of like, I'm with Archer. Wait, no.
Well,
I don't know what to say here.
Yeah, that was a strange love-hate episode for me, because it was the first episode I got in season 1, Dear Doctor, where you really learned a bit about who the guy was, his culture, yada yada, where he's from, blah blah blah. I had a love interest, Ensign Cutler, all that was great. The story about one dominant species on a planet with a so-called inferior species, or a species that had been turned into toadies. And the doctor says, well, this superior highfalutin species has a fatal disease. I could cure it, but I'm not going to, because that'll give the toadies a chance to not be toadies anymore. It was like, but that was a... Of all the ones that I've talked about down the years, that's the one that the other thing that I sometimes kind of had a little bit of an issue with was the nature of what season 3 was about in the post 9/11 world.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like it was imperialistic and kind of posited that the ends do justify the means, which is like, to me, it was like, this isn't 24, this is Star Trek.
Right.
So I had some individual episodes I thought were quite good because that season kind of ratcheted up the tension. We were on a quest. We had to succeed. Nothing could get in our way. So even the standalone episodes had an element of like, come on, that was maybe missing from the show. But I have to say, the idea that it was like, a bunch of insects attacked us and we got to go get those insects. Turned out at the end that the insects themselves were kind of like, it became a little bit more of a, elaborated conceit than I thought it was going to be. But I had some hard days on the set during season 3.
Really?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, there's an episode where Scott, he doesn't write them. We don't write them. We just act. Right. There's an episode where Archer is going to throw a guy out the airlock if he doesn't give him what he wants.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's, this was this was during Iraq War, Dick Cheney, you had to consider it in the time it was being produced. And I just thought it fed into a kind of a jingoism in America that was distasteful and problematic.
Yeah. But when you watch it now, it's interesting to talk about it in the context and it being uncomfortable. And I can understand exactly what you're saying. When you watch it now and you're removed from all of that now and you watch it, I think that's one of the most interesting arcs, that Archer's arc in that year was one where you look at a person like this is a captain that's been given this impossible mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything is riding on this. He's got so much pressure, and he is making some really bad, questionable decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that they actually addressed it, where he had to think about what it cost him to get that mission accomplished, you know, to do what he was asked to do.
Like
and he was like, I lost myself.
The episode Similitude, I thought, was an episode that was great for that very reason. You know, he was incredibly conflicted about the decision he had to make, but he had to make a decision for the good of the mission.
Right.
But it stopped short of torture.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing. Is like, I and maybe you're right. If I watch it now, I don't view it within the same. I don't see it through the same lens. Mm-hmm. But this was back when Abu Ghraib was happening, and it's like, you know, when we had people in our politics who were saying it's okay to torture.
Yeah.
You know, if there are no moral guardrails, it's like I want Star Trek to be a moral guardrail. In that instance, I didn't think it was.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I have not gone back and watched the episodes recently, so it may very well I would come at it with a much more generous perspective.
Well, I think it's
that's what Star Trek is, morality tales. It's always been morality tales.
Well,
so why go away from it?
In that instance, to me, it was like, I didn't think that was... But, you know, I got to say, Manny Cotto, who wrote that episode and wrote so many of the best episodes in the last two seasons, is a fascinating and really smart and really interesting guy, and I like him a lot.
Yeah.
He came from Cuba. And, you know, he has a perspective on what, for lack of a better word, I'll call national defense. That is more to the right of the usual Star Trek writer. And in other respects, he wrote the episode that I thought was a wonderful version of the Palestinian-Israeli issue, in which he was basically saying, you're all fucking insane to take, you know, this, you know, what could be resolved if you looked at it not from a prism of religion, but you looked at it from a prism of land and equity and sharing and yada, yada. So sometimes I thought, love it. I love the fact you're taking on some of this tough stuff. But in that one respect, I kind of felt like his militaristic side, to me, was like, it's a hard swallow for me. And then he brought me on 24, and I talked to him more. Of course, it didn't stop me from doing 24. So what am I?
You did some good work on 24.
Yeah, but I thought staying with that episode, I thought you had one of the best scenes ever in that one when you realized that what you thought that he was only going to last so long, and then you were like, oh my God, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and then you had to tell him that he's going to survive and you're going to have to kill him now. I was like, oh my God. That was
quite possibly my favorite episode of the series in terms of...
Really?
That's
because so much happened in that episode, you know? I mean, that was the episode in which Jolene learns that she actually is kind of in love with Trip through the relationship that the clone wants to have with her, which I thought was a great way to... I mean, you have to accept the fact that, you know, they're like giving each other naked massage at the beginning, and somehow they don't like.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, nothing's going on. We're just taking, you know.
I'm just saying.
I mean, the whole crew is giving each other naked
You
massages.
got one too.
I wasn't in on any of that. I wasn't in on any of that.
Yeah, you got one.
I was
too.
naked.
You got one too, John.
I got a naked massage. Oh well, Jolene was in Palm Far. That's why I didn't want her to eat all that cheese. That's why I didn't want to eat it. Yeah, we were like locked in the contamination chamber together. It's like, Jolene, stop eating cheese.
Everything happened in that damn decontamination chamber.
I know.
That
it's
was
like
the
really,
place, boy. There was a lot of action going on.
It's a 20 whatever the fucking century. Can't you have boy and girl like decontamination chambers? It's like, really?
We've gotten past that all, you know.
You gone past sex, yeah. We were a pervy crew, really.
Yeah, y'all were.
Well, listen,
my
favorite decontamination scene is when Hoshi broke the code and walked out of there, and you all had to go chase her down. She was contaminated with something, and they realized that Hoshi could break any code on this ship.
I don't remember that.
Hoshi.
I don't remember that.
Hoshi was a badass.
Hoshi is a badass.
Yeah.
Oh, she was a badass, man. She's my other favorite character, and I loved her little arc too. And I liked the relationship that you had with her in the show.
I know. I like that too, and that's something they started out right out of the gate with, and I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
And I was working with Hoshi, although I really liked working with everybody. I mean, it was really nice. I thought it was a good cast. I thought it was a nice group of folks. I don't know. I think the writers had a harder time figuring out what to. I mean, obviously, they had a harder time figuring out what to do with Anthony.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Maybe to a little bit of an extent. I think they weren't entirely sure what to do with Dominic after a certain point. In terms of like where are these guys going? You know? If it comes to that, I'm not entirely sure they quite. If the show had lasted, I was like, what do you think? Is the Doctor have a development? Like what's going to happen? Not quite sure anything's happening with the guy, but
right.
I don't know. I was sad that the woman who played Ensign Cutler, Kelly Waymeyer, passed away.
Yeah.
She was a lovely actress and just a gem of a person. And I would have bet my bottom dollar that she would have become, if she'd been interested, a series regular.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, she was good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, guys, do we have any more? Yes, we do.
I have a question. Yeah, I just want to ask him, what do you watch the new track? And if you do, what do you think of it?
I started watching Discovery, and I liked aspects of it, but I stopped, not because I I'm not a Klingon fan, I'll be honest with you. I've never been a huge fan, particularly the modern Klingons. The old Klingons, the original series, they talked like us, and it was like, la 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 la. Now the Klingons, it's like, and it takes forever to get a fucking scene done. It's like, speed it up.
Wait a minute. This is all your fault, Dr. Phlox. You're the one that made these mutants.
I only fixed their heads. I didn't I didn't make them all start talking like they were had oranges stuck in their mouths. Anyway, I thought Discovery was I was kind of bored with the Klingons, and I thought there's going to be a lot more Klingon. Sorry for all you guys who love the Klingons.
You just got to go to season 2, though.
Yeah. I may, and I watched a couple of the Lower Decks, which I thought were cute. Mostly what it is that I don't know if you can. I like to read.
Yeah,
that's the thing that gives me the most joy. So I'm very sparing on how much television I'll watch. I don't watch a ton.
Read the Star Trek books?
No. No, I wasn't really I don't take this the wrong way. It's not that I don't. I mean, obviously,
that's an inside joke here.
It's just an inside.
It was a dig at Yvette.
It was a dig at Yvette. Do you not?
I read them all.
You read them all.
I thought it was
the question was a dig at Yvette, and the answer was a dig at Fran.
Right, exactly. It's a dig at both of you.
Oh wow!
I read them all. She reads none of them.
That was really skillfully done, Sabrina.
Very good, Sabrina.
Thank you. Yes,
Sabrina got the double tap on that one.
Well, I bought the Discovery book with the Discovery one with Sonequa and David, where their characters that year that they were off, and it didn't hold my interest. And I love to read, and I'm like, I can't read this.
Am I in any of the books other than in a purely ancillary capacity?
Yes, you are. You're in a lot of books.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. A lot of all the Enterprise books.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. Yeah. That's good.
And Dr. and his character grows.
Do I have any sex in the books? Is there any?
Yes. Well, they don't really do sex in the They do. I mean, people have sex, of course, but it's not. They're family books, so it doesn't get graphic or anything. Yeah.
There's no mad ennobling in sex.
Between chapter 8 and chapter 9, it's inferred that characters.
Right. It's all most of it is inferred. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't get like all of those hot decontamination chambers.
You got to go to fanfic now.
Fanfic, yeah.
There you go.
That's not inferred.
We know who's featuring on fanfic.
You're in the fanfic too, sir.
Really? All right. This is my idea for a series. It's Old Fat Phlox, where every episode begins with old fat shit knowledge. Back in the day when I was a doctor on Enterprise, She's crazy. Crazy things happened. And then in flashback, you hear the flashback music. And all these young actors would run around in their underpants. And then at the end of the episode, it would go, and it'd be like, well, there you go. Stay tuned next week for another fascinating episode of Old Fat Phlox. And I would like work half a day. I'd be number one on the call sheet.
Okay, number one.
I'd clean up.
There you go.
You'll
You'll
be surprised to hear that nobody is rushing to make that show.
I got $2 to put in to back that show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's get a what is that? What are those things
A
called?
petition going. You get a petition.
Right.
Get a GoFundMe
A
campaign.
GoFundMe page.
Paramount would be very puzzled. There's another letter saying they want to see Old Fat Phlox. Where are these coming from?
Old fat.
Phlox. Yeah. I'm gonna use that in the meeting tomorrow, John.
Oh, fabulous. Well, yeah. As I say, I've only got 10 stories and I tell them on every podcast. And now people are like, oh, God, here he is with the Old Fat Phlox shit again.
Well, maybe our listeners maybe not have heard that, so that'll be great.
All right. Good. Yeah. Well, I usually like to spend a little time talking about the worst things I've ever done on television, but we don't have time for that. So next time. Next time.
I love it.
Well, guys, okay, I'm going to rein us in because I think we could honestly really sit here and talk for the rest of the night, and it would be lovely and it would be fun. But I have to go to bed at some point.
And I have to eat dinner.
Save it for the cruise. Save it for the cruise.
Thank you guys so much, both for having me on, for the wonderful support you're giving to the Hollywood Food Coalition through your support of Trek Talks 2. I know that Yvette represents you all. And so thank you guys. It means the world to us. It really does.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. It's truly our pleasure. Thank you. And we're excited to be doing it. Trek Talks 2 again, folks. January 14th coming up from 10 to 6, right? That's Pacific. That's Pacific time.
Pacific time.
10 to 6 Pacific time.
Yep.
And so, if you want to have any thoughts, folks, about Trek Talks 2, about Hollywood Food Coalition, about fat ass Dr. Phlox, or anything else.
Phlox. Not fat ass Dr. Phlox. That's not euphonious. Fat Phlox is euphonious.
I did not have enough
Fat ass Dr. Phlox.
There was not enough alliteration in that. Okay. I'm sorry.
I
didn't mean to
Fat ass
disappoint.
Phlox. That's more of a kind of like the urban version of.
That's right.
Fat ass Phlox.
I'm sorry.
Says the girl-
Read the room.
Read the. I know, right? I'm like, says the girl from DC. Fat ass Phlox, man.
Fat ass Phlox. Here he comes. Here's old fat ass Phlox. Yeah.
There you go.
Now you're getting it.
The credit crawl would be him entering frame. It would take like a minute and a half. Here he comes. Here he comes. Come on. Jesus. Move it, fat ass.
We are going to get so many letters. Oh, my God. Y'all, please don't write us about
It's going to
fat
take
ass,
24
okay?
hours to edit this thing.
Just understand.
Assisted.
Just understand the colloquialism of my DC language, okay? Don't write me.
I have succeeded in bringing another podcast down into the gutter. I like
downhill. Oh God, Yvette, will you please tell people? I really don't want them to know now. Tell people where they can reach us.
You can find us at SyFysistas.com. That's SyFysistas.com. Join us on the mothership. That's MUTHASHIP. And the SyFy Sisters Book Club, both on Facebook. Download the Trek Geeks Network app, where you can find us and our family of podcasts on the Trek Geeks Network. On Instagram, syfy.sisters. And we are also on the Twitter at SyFy Sisters. Become a patron of SyFy Sisters today at patreon.com/SyFy Sisters. After listening to this podcast, please rate us and write a review. We may just read it on an upcoming episode.
And of course, we got to shout out the baddest engineer in all the universes and in any galaxy. That's Dose the Anonymous One. He's responsible for all the music you hear on our show and all the production services. And so if you need help with your podcast, or if you just need some music or a badass sound engineer, look him up on Instagram at dose_the_anonymous_1. Okay, y'all, we're out. Peace, love, and hair grease. See you later.
Toodles.